The ship moved slowly through the stars, its silver body shining against the dark sky. Inside, human soldier Tomasz sat quietly, looking out the window. He had been on many missions before, but this one felt different. This time, he was not sent to fight, but to speak. He was being sent to meet the Varans, an alien people who had never trusted humans. The Varans were strong and proud. They lived on a hot, desert-like world named Vara, filled with red mountains, sharp rocks, and glowing skies. Their queen, Aranel, was young but already known for her strength. Many called her the Rebellious Queen, because she refused to follow the rules of the larger alien empire. She wanted her people free, and she fought against anyone who tried to control them. Tomasz was not sure why he had been chosen. He was not a high officer, not a famous hero. He was only a soldier who had once shown bravery during a small battle. Yet now, he was being sent as a representative of Earth, to stand before a queen who disliked humans. He sighed and touched the small metal pin to his chest. "Why me?" he whispered to himself. The pilot of the ship, a quiet woman named Myra, looked back at him. "Orders are orders. Maybe they think the queen will listen to someone honest, not a polished officer." Tomasz gave a small smile. Honest, that was all he had. When the ship finally landed on Vara, the heat rushed inside like fire. Tomasz stepped down onto the hard stone ground, feeling the dry air burn his throat. Tall alien guards with armor made of black crystal stood in two lines, their sharp spears glowing faintly. Their faces were hidden by masks, but he could feel their eyes watching him carefully. One guard stepped forward and spoke in a deep voice. "The queen will see you. Follow." Tomasz nodded and walked between them. His heart beat faster with every step. The path led into a palace built into the side of a giant red cliff. The walls rose high above, carved with symbols of wings and fire. Everything about the place felt ancient and powerful. Inside, the air was cooler, filled with the smell of burning incense. Light from glowing crystals lit the hall, making the shadows dance. At the far end sat Queen Aranel, on a throne of black stone. Tomasz froze for a moment when he saw her. She was tall, her skin pale with a faint silver shine. Her dark hair fell over her shoulders like a river, and her eyes glowed faintly gold. She wore armor shaped like wings, though it was lighter than what her guards carried. Her face was calm, but her gaze was sharp, like she could see every thought in Tomasz's head. "Human," she said, her voice strong but cold. "You are far from your world. Do you bring peace, or another chain?" Tomasz bowed quickly, trying to remember the respectful words he had practiced. "Your Majesty, I bring greetings from Earth. I come only to speak, and to listen." The queen tilted her head slightly, as if testing his words. "Many humans have come before you. They promised peace, but carried weapons. They spoke of friendship, but demanded control. Why should I trust you?" The hall was silent. Dozens of Varans stood along the walls, waiting for his answer. Tomasz felt sweat run down his neck. He wanted to sound perfect, but his mind was not as sharp as the trained diplomats. He could only speak simply. "Because I do not command," Tomasz said slowly. "I am only a soldier. I have no power over your world. I can only tell you the truth." Some of the Varan advisors murmured at this, surprised by his plain words. The queen leaned forward, her golden eyes never leaving him. "You speak without Polish," she said. "Strange, for one sent to my throne." Tomasz's mouth went dry. He wanted to answer, but the words stumbled in his throat. His tongue slipped, and before he could stop himself, he blurted out something he never meant to say. "You look attractive." The hall froze. Every guard lifted their spear, pointing it toward him. Advisors gasped. The silence was heavy, like the air itself had stopped moving. Tomasz's face turned red as fire. His heart pounded in panic. That was not what he was supposed to say. He had ruined everything. For a long moment, the queen only stared at him. Her expression unreadable, her golden eyes shining in the dim light. Then, something unexpected happened. She laughed. It was not a cruel laugh, not sharp like a blade. It was soft at first, then full, echoing across the stone hall. The guards looked at each other in shock. None of them had ever heard the queen laugh before. "You are bold, human," Arenal said, her voice amused. "Or perhaps foolish. Few would speak such words in my hall." Tomash swallowed hard, his legs stiff as stone. He wanted to explain, to take back the words, but he could not speak. The queen leaned back in her throne, still watching him with that strange, glowing gaze. "Interesting," she said. And in that single word, Tomash felt his mission had just changed in a way no one expected. The sound of Queen Arenal's laugh still echoed in the wide hall. For a moment, Tomash did not know what to think. His words had been a mistake, a clumsy slip, but instead of anger, the queen had shown something no one expected: amusement. The guards slowly lowered their spears, unsure if the danger was gone. The advisors exchanged uneasy looks. They had never seen their queen react this way to any outsider, much less a human. Tomash stood stiffly, his heart still racing. He wanted to speak, to explain, but the words stuck in his throat. What explanation could he give? How could he tell the queen that he had meant to say something respectful, yet his nervous tongue betrayed him? At last, Queen Arenal leaned forward slightly, her golden eyes glowing with curiosity. "You are different from the others," she said. "They come dressed in perfect words, polished and heavy, like chains of metal. But your words fall like stones in the sand. Honest, heavy, clumsy, but real." Tomash bowed his head, unsure if that was praise or insult. "I did not mean disrespect, your majesty." "My words," he stopped, embarrassed. "They escaped without permission." The queen's lips curved into the smallest smile. "Sometimes, the words that escape reveal more than those chained inside." Her court murmured in confusion. Some advisors shook their heads, clearly displeased. One old counselor stepped forward, his robes dark with woven silver threads. "Your Majesty, forgive me, but this human insults your honor. He should be punished for such careless speech." But Arenal raised her hand, silencing him. "Punished? For speaking truth, even if by accident? No, I have heard enough polished lies. Let me hear this soldier speak freely." Tomash felt his knees weaken. Did she truly want him to keep speaking? He had never been trained as a diplomat. He had no flowery speeches, no clever promises. He could only speak with plain words, and plain words could be dangerous in a hall like this. Still, he straightened his back and forced himself to meet the queen's gaze. "I am only a soldier, Queen Arenal. I have no rich words, only what I know. On earth, I was taught that honesty is the only shield that does not break. If I have offended, I will take the blame, but I will not lie to you." The queen studied him for a long moment. Her golden eyes seemed to glow brighter, as if searching his soul. Then she nodded slowly. "A shield that does not break, yes, that is a lesson even my people forget." The advisors whispered again, clearly unhappy. One of the younger nobles stepped forward angrily. His armor shone with polished crystal, and his voice rang sharp. "My queen, this man is a danger. His words may charm, but he is still a human. He should not stand here so freely." Arenal's expression turned colder. "Do you fear words so much, commander?" The noble bowed his head quickly, but the queen's tone silenced further protest. Tomash felt the tension in the room, the heavy weight of 100 eyes on him. He did not know what game he had stepped into, but he knew one thing: the queen was testing him. "Tell me, human, Aranel said at last. What do you see when you look at me? Not as queen, not as enemy, but as living being. The hall grew quiet. No one had expected such a question. Tomasz swallowed. His mind searched for a safe answer, but there was none. He could only speak the truth. I see strength, he said slowly. Not the strength of soldiers with weapons, but the strength of someone who carries the weight of many lives. I see eyes that do not look away, even when the burden is heavy. And, he stopped, his cheeks warming again. And I see someone who chooses to stand tall, even when others want to bow. The silence deepened. Queen Aranel tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. But for the second time that day, a faint laugh slipped from her lips. Strange human, she said softly. You speak clumsy truths that no one else dares. One of the guards near the throne stepped forward. Majesty, shall we remove him? No, Aranel said firmly. She rose from her throne, the crystal light catching on her dark armor. She walked down the steps, each movement graceful yet powerful. She stopped just a few feet away from Tomasz, so close he could see the faint silver marks on her skin that glimmered like stars. Her golden eyes locked with his. You are bold to stand here, soldier of earth. But tell me, do you have courage when your life is at risk? Or are your bold words only safe in a hall of guards? Tomasz felt the challenge in her voice. He straightened, forcing his voice steady. Courage is only real when life is at risk. Words mean nothing without action. For a heartbeat, the queen was silent. Then she smiled again, this time sharper, like fire hidden under ice. Good, she said. Then let us see if your actions can carry the same weight as your words. The guards struck their spears against the floor with a heavy sound, echoing like thunder. The queen turned away, returning to her throne, but her voice carried across the hall, this human will remain in my court. Watch him. Listen to him. Test him. Tomasz's stomach tightened. He realized he was no longer just a visitor. He was now part of a game he did not understand, a game where a single mistake could cost him more than embarrassment. But as he glanced at Queen Aranel, sitting tall upon her throne with golden eyes glowing like fire, he also knew something else. She was not finished with him. Not yet. The days that followed were strange for Tomasz. He had come to Vera expecting a short meeting, perhaps a few polite words, and then a return to Earth. Instead, Queen Aranel had ordered him to remain in her court. He was given a small chamber inside the cliffside palace. The walls glowed with soft light from crystals buried in the stone, and the air smelled faintly of spice and smoke. Guards stood outside his door at all times, watching him carefully. He was not a prisoner, but he was not free either. Every morning, he was brought to the throne hall. There, Queen Aranel would ask him questions, not simple questions about Earth's leaders or armies, but questions that cut deeper. What do humans value most? She asked one day. Do humans fear death more than dishonor? She asked another. Why do humans fight wars they cannot win? Her golden eyes never left his face as he answered. Tomasz did not try to invent perfect words. He only told the truth as he understood it. Humans value family, he said once. Even the poorest man will protect his children with his life. We fear shame as much as death, he admitted another time. But often, we pretend not to. And we fight unwinnable wars, he explained, because sometimes losing while trying is better than living without trying at all. Each answer stirred whispers in the court. The advisors often frowned, muttering among themselves. But Aranel seemed intrigued. She leaned forward in her throne, studying him as if he were some puzzle she had long tried to solve. One evening, after a long day of questions, she dismissed her court but ordered Tomasz to remain. The hall emptied until only the guards and the queen were left. You surprise me, human, Aranel said, her voice softer than before. When you first spoke, I thought you were careless. Now I see you are something else. You speak without fear. Tamash bowed his head slightly. I am afraid, Your Majesty. I am afraid of saying the wrong thing, of failing my people. But I believe truth has more power than fear. The queen's lips curved into a faint smile. Truth has power, yes. But truth is also dangerous. Do you not fear what it may cost you? Tamash met her golden eyes. If the truth costs me, then it was worth paying. For a moment, the hall was silent. Then the queen laughed quietly, not the cold laugh of scorn but the warm laugh of someone amused by a discovery. You are very strange, she said. Your words fall like stones, yet they strike like arrows. Tamash felt heat rise in his face. He was not used to such attention, especially from someone like her. He looked away, his eyes tracing the carved symbols on the stone floor. But before he could answer, one of the guards stepped forward, bowing low. Majesty, forgive me, but this is dangerous. The court grows restless. They do not trust this human. Some whisper that he charms you with his words. The queen's gaze hardened. Charm me, she repeated. She rose from her throne, her tall figure glowing faintly in the crystal light. Do they think I am so weak that a human soldier can bend my will with clumsy speech? The guard lowered his head quickly. I meant no insult, Majesty. Only caution. Arenal waved her hand, dismissing him. But her golden eyes returned to Tamash, sharp and searching. Tell me, human. Do you seek to charm me? Tamash's chest tightened. He shook his head firmly. No, Majesty. I do not come to charm. I do not have that skill. I only speak what I see. And what do you see now? She asked, stepping closer, her eyes never leaving his. Tamash hesitated. The air between them felt heavy, like the whole hall was holding its breath. He swallowed and answered simply. I see a queen who carries more weight than anyone should. I see someone who could be cruel but chooses strength instead. I see someone who has every reason to hate humans, but still listens. For a moment, Arenal said nothing. Her golden eyes studied him, unreadable. Then, slowly, she gave a small nod. Strange words from a stranger. Yet, they do not feel false. She turned and walked back toward her throne. But before sitting, she spoke again. Perhaps you are not like the others. Perhaps you are worth listening to. Tamash bowed again, unsure what else to say. His heart beat faster than before. He had come expecting anger, perhaps even death, yet somehow, his plain words had created something unexpected, a spark of curiosity in the heart of a queen who trusted no one. That night, as he returned to his chamber, he thought about the day's questions. He realized something. Queen Arenal was not only testing him. She was searching for something, though he did not yet know what. And in his own heart, Tamash felt a strange mix of fear and hope. For the first time, he wondered if his accidental words "you look attractive" had opened a path he could never have imagined. The palace of Vero was never quiet for long. Though its walls of red stone stood tall and proud, whispers of unrest echoed through every hall. Tamash could feel it. The queen's court was not united. Some bowed to her with respect, but others glared at her when they thought no one was watching. Queen Arenal ruled strongly, but her crown was heavy. Her people were divided into factions. Some wanted peace with the great alien empire that pressed on Vera's borders. Others wanted endless war. And some, the most dangerous of all, wanted to remove the queen herself and place another in her place. Tamash noticed it during the gatherings in the throne hall. Advisors spoke politely, but their eyes betrayed doubt. Commanders argued loudly over how to defend the outer cities. Nobles whispered when Arenal left the chamber. One evening, after the council had ended, Arenal called Tamash to walk with her through the palace gardens. The garden was not like those on earth. Instead of soft grass and flowers, it was filled with tall glowing plants that swayed like fire in the wind. Pools of blue water reflected the red stone cliffs above, and strange birds with crystal wings perched on the branches. Aranel walked ahead, her armor glinting in the crystal light. Tamash followed quietly until she finally spoke. "You see it, don't you?" she asked. "See what, Majesty?" Tamash replied. "The cracks in my court," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was a shadow behind it. "They smile to my face, but behind me they sharpen their knives. Some believe I am too young, too bold, too rebellious to lead. They want me to bow to the empire like a child bends to a master." Tamash hesitated. "And you refuse?" Aranel turned, her golden eyes fierce. "I will never bow. My people are not slaves. We are free, or we are nothing." The fire in her voice made Tamash straighten his back. He admired her strength, but he could also feel the danger. A queen surrounded by enemies was a flame surrounded by dry wood. Any spark could set the world burning. "They test me," Aranel continued. "They watch to see if I will break. That is why I keep you here, human. You are a stranger. You have no ties to their games. Your words may cut through their lies." Tamash blinked in surprise. "Me? But I am only a soldier. I know nothing of ruling." Aranel studied him for a long moment. "Perhaps. But you know of loyalty. You know of standing firm when the world is against you. That, Tamash of Earth, is what I need." Before he could answer, voices approached from the far side of the garden. A group of nobles and commanders entered, their robes bright with gems, their armor polished. They bowed low, but their smiles were thin. "Majesty," one of them said, "the council grows restless. This human lingers too long in your court. Some question your judgment." Aranel's eyes narrowed. "Do they question my judgment, or do they fear his words?" The noble hesitated, then forced a smile. "We fear his influence. He is an outsider. Outsiders cannot understand our ways." Aranel's voice turned sharp. "Then let us see if his words carry weight. Ask him your questions, here and now." The nobles glanced at each other, then one commander stepped forward. His armor shone with dark crystal. "Very well. Human, answer this: why do humans fight wars when victory is hopeless? Why waste lives for a lost cause?" Tamash took a slow breath. He had been asked this before by the queen, but now it mattered more. Every eye was on him, waiting to see if he would fail. "Because sometimes," he said, "to fight is the only way to show that you will not kneel. Even if defeat comes, the world remembers that you stood. And memory can be stronger than victory." The court fell silent. The commander frowned, but some of the younger guards seemed moved by the words. Another noble stepped forward quickly, her voice sharp. "And what of loyalty, human? How can you speak of loyalty when humans are known to betray one another for power?" Tamash's answer came firm. "Yes, humans betray. We are not perfect. But even in our darkest moments, there are those who stay true. Loyalty is not the absence of betrayal. It is the choice to stand when it would be easier to fall." The queen's golden eyes shone brighter as she listened. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. The nobles muttered, clearly displeased, but they could not easily twist his plain words. At last, they bowed again, forcing respect. "We will speak more later, Majesty," one of them said before leaving the garden. When they were gone, Tamash let out a breath he did not know he was holding. "I think they hate me," he admitted. Aranel gave a quiet laugh. "They fear you, Tamash. Fear is stronger than hate." She turned to face the glowing plants, her eyes far away. "But fear can also turn to fire. The rebellion within my court grows hotter every day. Soon, someone will test me openly. And when that day comes, she paused, her voice low. I will need to know who truly stands with me. Tomasz stood beside her, silent. He knew he had no power here, no army, no throne. Yet somehow, the Queen of Vera had begun to see him not as a stranger, but as a shield in a court full of knives. And deep in his heart, Tomasz felt something he had not expected, the spark of loyalty, not to his mission, not even to Earth, but to a queen who carried fire in her eyes. The days in the palace grew heavier, like clouds before a storm. Whispers of rebellion filled the halls, and Tomasz could feel the tension in every glance, every word spoken behind the queen's back. One morning, the court gathered in the great throne hall. The tall red walls glowed faintly in the light of crystal torches. Tomasz stood near the back, unsure why he had been summoned. Guards lined the hall, nobles whispered, and commanders shifted restlessly in their armor. Then the queen entered. Arenal walked with her usual strength, her dark armor shining, her golden eyes sharp as fire. She sat on her throne, silent for a moment, letting the hall grow quiet. Finally, one commander stepped forward. It was the same man who had challenged Tomasz before, the one with polished black crystal armor. His name was Commander Varric, and his voice rang out loud and proud. Majesty, he said, bowing low but not hiding the pride in his eyes, this human speaks well, but words are easy. We cannot trust words alone. If he is to stay in your court, he must prove himself. Let him face a trial of courage, as our people do. The hall stirred with murmurs. Some nodded, others frowned. All eyes turned to the queen. Arenal's gaze shifted to Tomasz. Her voice was calm, yet carried weight. A trial of courage. What say you, human? Tomasz's stomach tightened. He wanted to refuse. He was only a soldier, far from home, standing in a hall filled with those who wished him gone. But to refuse now would mean shame not only for him, but for the queen who had allowed him to stay. He swallowed hard, lifted his head, and said, if your people ask it, I will face it. The hall echoed with gasps. Commander Varric's lips curved into a thin smile. Then let the trial be the crossing of the scorching plains, Varric declared. He must walk from the edge of the plains to the sacred tower at its center. Alone, with no guide. Only then will we see if he carries true courage or only empty words. Tomasz had heard of the scorching plains. Even among the Varans, it was feared. A vast desert of burning sand, sudden storms, and strange beasts that hunted in the heat. Few ever crossed it alone. Queen Arenal's eyes narrowed. That trial is deadly, she said sharply. Deadly, yes, Varric replied smoothly. But so is leadership. If the human fails, then we know he was only a fool. If he succeeds, then perhaps his words have weight. The queen was silent for a long time. At last, she turned to Tomasz. Do you accept this trial? Tomasz's heart pounded. His mind screamed to refuse. But he saw the court watching, saw Varric's satisfied smile, and most of all, saw the queen's golden eyes. She was not asking for herself, she was giving him the choice. I accept, Tomasz said firmly. The hall erupted with voices, some shocked, some pleased. The queen raised her hand for silence. So be it. At dawn, the human will walk the scorching plains. The next morning, Tomasz stood at the edge of the vast desert. The sun blazed high, the sand shimmering like molten glass. He wore only light desert clothing given by the guards, and carried a small flask of water. That was all. Behind him, the court had gathered to watch. Commander Varric stood proudly, certain the human would fail. But Queen Arenal stood beside her throne carriage, her eyes steady on Tomasz. Remember, she said softly, her voice low so only he could hear. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to walk forward even when fear is heavy. Tomasz nodded. He gripped the flask tightly, then stepped onto the burning sand. The heat struck him at once. Each step sank into soft grains that burned through his thin shoes. The air shimmered, dry and cruel. By midday, his throat ached with thirst, and his skin felt aflame. Yet he kept walking. When the sun dropped low, a storm rose. Winds howled across the plains, throwing sand into his face until he could hardly see. The sky turned red and dark, lightning cracking in the distance. Tomasz stumbled, falling to his knees, but he forced himself up. "This is courage," he muttered to himself. "Not victory, not strength. Just moving forward." The night was worse. The desert grew cold, the wind biting. Strange shadows moved on the sand. He heard low growls in the dark. His heart pounded, but he remembered Arenal's words. He kept walking, step after painful step. At dawn, when the first light broke, Tomasz lifted his head and saw it, the sacred tower. It rose from the center of the desert, tall and sharp, carved from black stone. His legs shook, his body weak, but the sight filled him with strength. With the last of his energy, he staggered forward, step by step, until his hand touched the cold stone of the tower. He fell to his knees, exhausted but alive. Far away, on the edge of the desert, the court watched from a distance. "He made it," one guard whispered in disbelief. Commander Varick's face darkened. But Queen Arenal stood tall, her golden eyes shining with pride. "He made it because he did not turn back," she said. When Tomasz was brought back to the palace, weak but alive, the court was silent. Even those who doubted could not ignore what he had done. He had faced the scorching plains, and he had endured. That evening, Arenal stood before him in the quiet of the garden. "You could have turned back," she said softly. "You could have refused. Yet you did not." Tomasz gave a tired smile. "I told you, Majesty. Words mean nothing without action." For the first time, the queen gave him not a laugh, not a test, but a true smile. "Perhaps you are more than you seem, Tomasz of Earth." And for the first time, Tomasz believed it too. The palace of Vero was quiet that evening, unusually quiet. Tomasz sat in his small chamber, his body still weak from the scorching plains, but his mind was alert. He could still feel the sand under his feet, the burning sun, and the howling winds. Every moment of that trial had tested him, but it had also taught him something important: courage was more than strength. It was endurance. A soft knock at the door made him sit up. "Enter," he called, his voice still tired. Queen Arenal stepped inside, her golden eyes glowing faintly in the soft light. She was not wearing armor tonight, only a simple silver cloak over her shoulders. She moved with the quiet grace of someone used to command, but there was something softer in her expression. "You survived," she said simply, her voice steady but not cold. Tomasz managed a small smile. "I had to, Majesty. I promised myself I would not fail." Arenal walked closer and studied him for a long moment. "And yet, I wonder, why did you accept the trial at all? You could have refused. A human has no place in our traditions. Why risk your life?" Tomasz looked down, thinking carefully. "Because your court is full of knives, Majesty. And I wanted to show you that words mean nothing without action. If I cannot act when it matters, then my words are worthless." The queen nodded slowly. She sat on the edge of a low bench across from him, folding her hands. "You are honest, Tomasz of Earth. Most humans speak with false pride. Most lie to survive. Yet you speak the truth, even when it could harm you." Tomasz felt a strange warmth in his chest. Few had ever praised him for honesty. Fewer still in front of a queen of another world. "Tell me," Arenal continued, leaning slightly forward, "what do you see now? After all you have done, after the trial, after this, Court full of whispers. Tamash thought of the factions, the nobles who watched him with suspicion, the commanders who doubted him, and most of all, the queen herself. He took a deep breath. I see a queen who bears the weight of her people with strength no one else could, he said quietly. I see danger around every corner, and enemies who would see her fall. But I also see someone who chooses her own path. Someone who trusts even when the world tells her not to. Arenal's golden eyes softened slightly. She had heard flattery before, but this was not flattery. It was simple truth, plain and steady. She studied Tamash for a long moment, then asked the question she had kept hidden since his first day in the hall. Why did you speak to me that day, in the throne hall? Her gaze sharpened, though her tone remained calm. When you said, you look attractive. Tamash's face burned. He had tried to forget that moment. He opened his mouth to apologize, but stopped. The words no longer seemed like a mistake. I did not mean to speak those words, he admitted, but they were also the truth. I admire you, Majesty. Not just as a queen, but as someone strong, someone brave, someone who stands tall when all else would bend. I could not hide it. The queen's expression remained unreadable for a moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. Truth spoken without fear. That is rare, human. Most fear the consequences of honesty. You do not. Tamash looked down, unsure if he had offended her or not. But she did not speak again immediately. Instead, she leaned back, her hands resting on her knees. You could have been a pawn, she said softly. A human sent to charm me, to weaken my court. Yet, you were honest. You did not lie. You risked yourself when it mattered. That is why I have not sent you away. Tamash lifted his head. I do not want to be a pawn, Majesty. I only want to do what is right. The queen's lips curved into a faint smile. And perhaps that is why I trust you. For the first time, Tamash felt a connection he had not expected. The queen, who had seemed untouchable, distant, even dangerous, now spoke to him not as an enemy, but as someone who might see him for what he was. Yet the court remained a place of danger. The factions would not rest. Some nobles whispered that his survival of the trial had made him dangerous. Some commanders doubted the queen herself, questioning why she allowed a human to stay. Tamash understood this, but he no longer feared it in the same way. Trust, he realized, was stronger than fear. And he had earned a fragile trust with the queen. Arenal stood and turned toward the door. Rest now, Tamash. Tomorrow, you will need your strength again. The court will test you, and so will your enemies. But know this, she paused, her golden eyes meeting his. You have proven more than courage. You have proven honesty, and honesty is stronger than any blade. Tamash bowed deeply. Thank you, Majesty. As she left the room, the door closing softly behind her, he felt a sense of calm he had not felt since arriving on Vera. The trust he had gained with the queen was fragile, yes, but it was a beginning. A spark in the midst of shadows and whispers. And Tamash knew that whatever came next, he would face it with the same resolve that had carried him across the scorching plains. Because courage and honesty were now his shields and the queen's trust was a light he could not ignore. The palace of Vera was tense that morning. The whispers of the court had grown louder after Tamash survived the scorching plains. Nobles argued in the halls, commanders tested the limits of their soldiers, and even the guards looked at him with cautious respect. But Tamash only thought of one person, Queen Arenal. Her golden eyes had become a guide for him, a compass in a world full of dangers and whispers. He had learned her ways, her strength, and her determination. He had seen the fire she carried for her people. The queen summoned him to the throne hall once more. This time, the hall was filled with the most important figures of Vera, advisors, commanders, and nobles. Every eye was on him, every ear ready to catch a word. Queen Aranel entered, her dark armor glinting in the crystal torches. She sat on her throne, calm and composed, though the tension in the hall was heavy. She raised her hand, and silence fell immediately. Tamash of Earth, she began, her voice steady, you have faced the scorching plains. You have answered my questions with honesty. You have not faltered under the watchful eyes of my court. You have proven courage, endurance, and truth. The hall murmured, some impressed, others doubtful. Commander Varric's face was tight with anger, though he did not speak. The queen continued, and now, you must make a choice. You may leave my court, return to your world, and speak of our people to earth. Or, you may stay. Stay not as a prisoner, but as a guest, as someone I trust. The path will not be easy. You will face danger, suspicion, and challenges. But you will stand beside me, not because of blood, but because of loyalty and truth. Tamash felt his heart beat faster. He had thought about this moment during the long nights after the trial. He had not expected such a decision, yet somehow, he had known it might come. He bowed deeply. Majesty, I would stay, if you allow it. I do not come to rule. I do not come to take power. But I will serve, and I will speak truth, and I will do what is right for your people and for you. Queen Aranel studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Very well. Then you shall stay. But understand this, your presence here changes everything. Some will hate you. Some will test you. Some may even try to harm you. Trust must be earned, not assumed. Are you ready for that? I am ready, Tamash said firmly. The queen's golden eyes softened, and for the first time, a faint smile appeared on her face. Good. Then we begin anew, human. Together. After the council dispersed, Aranel led Tamash through the palace gardens. The glowing plants swayed in the gentle wind, and the strange crystal birds sang softly. For a moment, the outside world felt calm, as if it understood the importance of what had just happened. You surprised me, Aranel said, her voice soft but steady. Not many humans could survive the scorching plains, much less stand firm under the gaze of my court. Tamash looked down at his hands, worn and scratched from the desert journey. I did what I had to do, Majesty. I could not fail. Not for me, and not for you. Aranel stopped walking and turned to face him fully. And yet, you speak words no one else dares. You speak truth when all others hide behind lies. That is what makes you different. Tamash met her gaze, feeling a connection he had never expected. I do not want to be different just for praise, Majesty. I want to do what is right. A faint smile appeared on her lips. Then perhaps we are not so different after all. I too stand for what is right, even when the path is dangerous. And now, I see in you someone who may walk that path beside me. For the first time, Tamash felt hope bloom in the midst of danger and tension. He realized that the queen had trusted him, not for power, not for skill, but for honesty, courage, and loyalty. And that trust was stronger than any weapon in the palace. Days passed, and Tamash began to understand the court in ways he never could before. Nobles tested him, commanders challenged him, and even the guards sometimes doubted him. But he remembered the queen's words, and he stayed true. He spoke honestly, acted bravely, and slowly, the court began to see him differently. By the end of the week, even Commander Varric had stopped openly questioning him, though the man's pride still burned. Tamash had not only survived, he had earned a place, a trust few humans could ever imagine gaining in an alien world. One evening, Tamash stood beside Queen Aranel on the balcony of her throne chamber. The red mountains of Vara stretched into the distance, and the twin suns were setting, painting the sky with shades of gold and crimson. You have changed my court, Aranel said softly. And perhaps, you have changed me as well. Tamash nodded, feeling the weight of her words. And you have changed me, Majesty. You showed me that courage and honesty can win even when the world seems full of danger. For the first time, they stood together not as human and alien, soldier and queen, but as two beings who understood one another, united by trust and respect. The winds of Vera blew across the balcony, warm and gentle. Tamash realized that his journey was only beginning. The challenges would come, yes, but he was no longer alone. And with Queen Aranel by his side, perhaps even the impossible could be faced. For the first time since stepping on this alien world, he smiled truly. And Queen Aranel, golden eyes glinting in the last light of the setting suns, smiled too. The court of Vera had been changed forever, and a new chapter for both human and alien had begun.